Hello.
Welcome.
What's up?
What episode is this?
This is 41. This is episode 41. Welcome.
We're going to go deep
You
on
are
this
here,
episode.
you have arrived.
You're here. We are going to go super deep on this episode. We're
deep, I would say,
investigating the original instigation of the MK Ultra program in the CIA.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about Operation Northwoods. We
Operation
are
Paperclip.
Trust the Plan. We're talking about Mockingbird.
Oh, we are.
We're talking about the Gulf of Tonkin.
Yes. Project Bluebeam.
We're talking about Bluebeam. All right.
JFK assassination.
We're talking about the JFK assassination. We're talking about Cuba. We're talking about Vietnam.
All right.
Let's get into it.
And I believe we have a quote for everyone this morning.
Nice. Who said the quote first?
Mr. Boethius.
Boethius.
T-H? Because there was a big dispute. This is in like many history books. He was very mad at people who didn't put an H after the T in his name. Boethius.
Nice.
Because it could be, misinterpreted as Boetius, but it's Boethius.
Nice.
I mean, he just would be mad if we didn't make the distinction here.
I think so too. He'd be turning over in his grave.
Right. Yes.
So what did he say?
Oh, yeah. So the quote is, everything is known, why do I have to to not make it perfect?
That's
it's
okay.
like some sort of mental sabotage.
Yes, sir.
Because,
what did he say?
Okay, sorry. Again, here I go.
All right.
Mr. Boethius said, everything is known, not according to itself, but according to the capacity of the knower.
Okay. Mr. Boethius.
Let me repeat that. Everything is known, not in according to itself. I'm sorry. I added an extra word there.
Don't worry.
Not according to itself.
Okay.
But according to the capacity of the knower.
Nice. And everybody is probably thinking like, okay, who is this Boethius? What is this thing?
And why did they pick this quote?
All right, so
reading it twice.
Let me tell you here. Anisius Boethius was a Christian Roman aristocrat born at a time when the Roman Empire was disintegrating and the Ostrogoths...
Crazy times, bro.
Dude, I'd never heard of the Ostrogoths, but that's a great band name. A metal band name.
Well, they were trying to, become famous back then. But
they were actually a metal band was the one when...
Roman metal is the best.
So the Roman Empire was disintegrating. The Ostrogoths were ruled Italy. He became an orphan at the age of 7, important number, and was brought up by an aristocratic family in Rome. He was extremely well educated, speaking fluent Greek and having an extensive knowledge on Latin and Greek, literature and philosophy. Wow.
Polymath.
He devoted his life to translating and commenting on Greek texts, especially Aristotle's works on logic, until he was made chief advisor.
Okay.
He was made chief advisor to the Ostrogothic king Theodoric.
Does it say by who?
No. Okay.
Probably the great Marcus, probably. I don't know.
To finish this bio, some 5 years later, he became a victim of court intrigue and was wrongly accused of treason. Oh, was he?
Oof.
He was wrongly accused of treason and sentenced to death. Wow.
Okay.
He wrote his most famous work, The Consolation of Philosophy, while in prison awaiting execution. So that's Boethius.
Boethius didn't kill himself.
No, dude. He was the first Epstein.
Oh my god. I mean, sounds like one of those stories to me,
All right. So, and just for a reference, his first key work was published in 510. So, 510.
That's not so far ago.
So that's Boethius. And the quote is talking about information in itself, and that the capacity of the information to be... What is it? Let me have a look at this.
To be known.
It... rests on the ability of the person interpreting and bouncing the idea off things that they know, and the ability to consider the information itself and how it relates to other things, other pieces of
basically,
information.
I feel like he's basically saying it's not about access to information as much as your capacity or your process to and your curiosity even.
Right. Yeah.
This is going in a good direction, I think.
And it reminds me, I think we've mentioned it in the last couple of casts, or it just comes up every so often, but dude, I like it when your cup gets green screened.
Nice. What happened?
Nice.
That's good. Drinking the good sky.
The phenomena of when you read something again, like 10 years later, and it's a totally different book, and the information is totally different, and sometimes you realize there was way more meaning, or you find way more meaning in the book that you're reading, even though it's the same book, but it's a different you.
Exactly. So why, I mean, let's explore or try to, come up with different variables as to why that happens. Why we might have conversations, watch a movie, read a book, maybe you heard something on the news, on some restaurant you didn't pay attention to. All sort of information encounters that would have made your life so much valuable right now. Not valuable, I'm sorry. So much different, or
Don't worry.
sure. I mean,
accepted.
I'm apologizing to my higher self here. My higher self, just choosing the wrong word. Yeah, it's not about value, but maybe information helps us make better decisions.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
We could be in a different place.
It increases the capacity to make better decisions. It doesn't mean you will.
Right. Yeah.
That's the tricky part.
I mean, you will if you acknowledge the information.
Yes. And the information.
Not if you encounter it. Yeah.
And the quality of information, right?
Sure.
But and
the clarity and quality.
I think the phenomena of noticing things, so that's partially what this involves, is the noticing, having something stand out when you're reading or when you are listening or consuming information. It's like a large part of that, I think, has to do with terminology. Like, I can read a book and there might be a word choice and the sentence makes sense to me, but maybe the word or the term that's used has a much larger reference, like a much more behind it that maybe I wasn't familiar with. And then you can go in and through other investigations or just other information consumed over time, you go back and you read it, and that word all of a sudden has much more atmospheric importance.
Yeah. I guess that's why a big part of learning as you start reading books is this whole thing about whenever you encounter a word you don't really understand, go look at multiple definitions of that thing. That makes the whole language experience richer. And
that's a habit that you have to instill.
Yeah. It's also a great strategy to go about dealing with this language ability.
Yeah.
Is try to be as specific as possible in naming things. To name things by their right name or label. And that's why maybe it's confusing sometimes to have so many similar words. But the devil's in the details.
Yes, and the precision of your reading has to match the precision of the writer.
Yes. Yeah, it's so hard when. Yeah.
If you are reading it like the words aren't super precise, you're just like, oh, he means maybe this and maybe this and maybe this.
It's hard when you're trying to guess what the author is trying to say.
And of course, you'll never fully, like, I'm sure all the quoties that we do at the start of the podcast, we just completely go off and completely misinterpret what they meant. And
99% of the time.
And in part, we don't really care that, I mean, it's partially for conversation wave, but I think there is a truth that you're never going to get 100% what they meant by the precision of their word choice.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean the person emitting the message is not directly responsible for getting their message across. I mean, there's responsibility on both sides. You can only go so far, but it is up to you to get on to be able to transmit your message across with clarity and precision.
Yes, and that's the notion in like semiotics of communication, is like symbols and their meaning. It's like it doesn't mean anything if the interpreter doesn't, or the receiver of the symbol doesn't interpret it in the same way that the creator of the symbol meant for it to be interpreted. So it's the same idea, but it's like, it's totally up to the person who is absorbing the info to get to finalize the journey of the message.
Yeah.
It's like that's interesting because it places so much responsibility to reading, where usually you're reading like, oh, I'm trying to consume this information, and it's like, no, you're trying to complete the information. Like you're trying to take the message that this person sent, and like the responsibility is to receive it and to properly finalize the transmission of the idea.
I agree. And I feel like maybe there's a similar problem with echo chambers, where the basic definitions become distorted to the point where now you can't even communicate. You can't even talk with each other.
Dude, 100%.
Why does that happen? I 100%. Feel like
it's a combination too of in like concrete interpretations where it's like we all collectively agree that this is the interpretation of a word, and also coupled with these are special words that we use, and then if you're in a different kind of echo chamber or community or any kind of thing that you're involved in, you're going to have lingo. There's going to be words and lingo that you use, like different jobs, different career paths, different skills,
generational gaps,
and then you're going to have these words where it's like that's these words, and other people won't even recognize or consider them to be legitimate. Even you'll see in echo chamber people are like, why are you using this word, and sometimes using a word will put you in a category instantly, and now you're labeled X, Y, or Z because you're choosing to use that word, which has been banned by the opposite quote unquote group. And I don't know, it just becomes difficult to figure things out since we are speaking the same language, but not really. Not really, because every political
conversation will become like a language conversation. Now, like, what? But hold
It's all
on,
about
wait.
words.
What do you mean by this word?
Yes.
Now you have to clarify what that means so that the conversation can continue.
Yeah.
And I feel like every debate becomes this thing.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I mean, that's a big generalization, of course.
Generalization. But it is crazy that how much importance lays at the feet of words and of the definitions people are using.
Yeah.
And
sure. And important words like freedom, let's say.
Sure.
So many different meanings. Equality.
Yep.
So many different intentions.
Yep. And there seems to be at least the argument of like, oh, the internet and social media and these things, they're exacerbating
what's that even mean? Sure, yeah.
Exacerbating?
Yeah.
Like to be inflating it in a bad way, I think, to be making it worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's making the problem of echo chambers worse. That's the theory. And that
I can see that.
The gap between the language used and the interpretations that have become more, and also that the interpretations have become more concrete in a specific way that differs between the groups.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening. That it's like, it will.
Yeah.
The direction it's going is that people are less likely to be able to have conversations with similar definitions than becoming easier.
I've always thought that in some way these institutions that regulate language, like
what institutions?
In Spanish, the Royal Academy of La Real Academia Española, the institution that regulates the use of Castellano. And I mean, these guys are like, that's the official dictionary. If you want to check anything related to Spanish, is these guys. And there's a similar debate in many areas of society where you say how much openness versus how much regulation or intervention do we really need. In economics, like that's the biggest debate. Capitalism versus Marxism, etc. Like how much should be regulated versus the benefits of just open information, open exchange, open discovery, and in language specifically.
I don't think that's Marxism versus capitalism, but it's like conservation over progressive.
Or you could say if
Marxism
you're like more economic,
control.
That would be kind of like the
control. That would be
the extreme. I would
but
say
that's not
extreme.
Do you think that that's openness? Because you're trying to compare openness versus closed. So you're
because everything is redistributed by the state in that system. So that's not openness. That's
of course. Yeah. So
the opposite.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. But I totally agree. It's like the idea of how much do you lock down and how much do you let evolve? Because some of the openness you get ingenuity, you get
I think if you want to get more specific in language, economically, we would be speaking about the Keynesian theory, Keynesian economics, which is the government should regulate even more and more and more.
Yeah.
And the opposite would be something like the Austrian school,
or totally quote unquote free market or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that. And we're professional economists.
Something like the invisible hand, where the openness of the market regulates itself and actually creates more wealth and creates a new wealth.
Right. That's
something like that.
Yes. And and some people would want to argue one or the other, and both and
yes, there's a
like
great debate for sure.
Yes.
But I think in language, what I believe we can arrive at this convo is, if we don't regulate language, if we just let language be used 100% freely, that will eventually solve the problem of different definitions being used on a widespread manner. Eventually that would be solved. The problem of different communities, let's say, or echo chambers, using vital words in a different context or a completely totally different definition, that would be solved by just completely open use of language. And
because it's not a problem of the problem is of open interpretation. That's the problem. The problem is that people are deciding it means this thing, and then deciding that this is what it means for us. Yeah. And then someone else being like, this is what it means. Whereas if people agree that it's like, no, you can't choose a limited definition, or you can't make whatever definition up you can. If everyone's able to make up and use language however they want and say, no, this is what I meant, I can use it that way because this is my interpretation, then nothing means anything. Then people can go even more crazy in their echo chambers.
But people are going extremely crazy. Now we're like running into transracialism. Now,
sure.
Now it goes crazy far.
And and I'm just talking about specificity of language.
Yes. But what I have a problem with is authorities, quote unquote authorities, because could be elected or non-elected authorities. Mm-hmm. They try to create rules around language use.
Yeah, but it's a consensus. It's a consensus that's built between I don't know the process of these institutions. I've never worked to make a dictionary. Me neither. I don't really understand how that works. But if you look at different dictionaries, it's not like they're drastically different. Like it's pretty close, and people are working on taking variability, consolidating it down to what the core of this really is, and trying to articulate that.
Yeah.
And I don't see that as some top-down control of definitions. I see that as very helpful, so that people can at least look, even if they want to disagree, at least in a conversation, they can look to it and say, hey, we might have our own interpretation, but for the purpose of this conversation, we have something to point to be like, at least let's go off this while we have a conversation. And so we can come to a concrete definition. That's not open. That's at least for the convo.
So is that like a referee?
It's not like a referee. It's a building block of the conversation. It's not
democratic referee. Like, here I am. I'm just gonna watch you guys, and then I'm gonna try to find out what the commonalities are, and what I feel is what is it, like, structural and long-lasting.
Yeah.
Something around those.
I think
virtues.
It's more like the playing field. Because the dictionary isn't jumping in, refereeing everybody. It's two people saying, like, are we going to play on a basketball court? Are we going to play on a soccer field?
Yes.
And then people say...
And then putting it down on paper. Like, this is the game. Yeah. Yeah.
A referee would be someone with a dictionary going, like, you're...
The referee would be kind of like the police in that case. In this case. Yeah. Well, now when you got something like... speech, what is it, like speech, like the government demanding certain speech, that's a different that's a different wave. But
Yeah.
I think here's the thing: if let's say this pronoun phenomenon
Yeah.
is institutionalized. And I think what that means is that it becomes accepted and kind of like checkmarked, validated by the like the big, I guess, language
What are you
institutions.
talking about? What if it gets checkmarked, what does that mean?
Let's say in Spanish we've got a phenomena where instead of saying, it's similar to the we them thing.
Sure.
But what these guys are trying to do is change the O generally is used for male pronouns. The A is usually used for female pronouns. The English works similar in many words.
Yeah.
What they're trying to come up with is use an E instead. For example, todos would be everyone in a I guess male wording. Todas would be everyone in a female wording.
Sure.
But now we have words like todes. Todes is not a real word. Is a new made up word.
Well, this would be the openness versus regulation thing.
Right, but this is only a social phenomena so far.
But language is a social phenomena. That's what language is. Yes. Language evolves through social changes, and even lingo gets incorporated into dictionaries over time.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying let's not judge the phenomena right now. Let's not try to say it's right or wrong. Now talk about its morality. It's a thing that's happening.
Yes.
What I'm saying is if the institution, let's say, validates the thing, now it becomes officially part of Spanish.
And what do you think that would look like? What do you think the institutional validation would look like? When do you think you would be like, oh, it's institutionally validated? Like if it's in
They would have a press conference. They would change
conference.
They would have a press. The Real Academia Española would have a press conference. It would be on newspapers. It would be like
I don't know if we have something like that in Canada. Maybe we must.
England maybe has that.
I think there must be multiple Webster's, Oxford. Maybe it's the places that are generating dictionaries. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I've ever seen an Oxford press conference.
It would be like a whole marketing thing. They would
Webster's
press conference and newspaper articles, and it would be all over their website, and I don't know. Yeah. The whole thing. What I'm trying to say is, whether that's a good thing for language and a good thing for everyone is to be, let's say, that's to be determined.
Or that doesn't matter. That's besides the point.
That's besides the point, because it will be determined by a social factor. And I feel like the fact that some authority figure decides to validate, or right now their decision to not validate that yet is a political action, even if it's an inaction. It's seen.
Yeah. Well, I think that's in part a result of the fact that everything is becoming. Everything is becoming severely political. Like, I think people used to be like, oh, everything is political. That's I forget whose quote that is, but it used to be like, yeah, for some people you could make it that, like, you could make everything in your life have some sort of political meaning. That's totally up to you to see your life like that and to see everything be associated to something political. But I do think that it's increasing in, like, you can't like avoid it. It's like because you're starting to see a thing, and I think that accounts to some of this phenomena where it's like a lack of political participation is seen as as like a huge political move.
Yes, and that's part of the social pressure.
Like,
that and I mean that could be even part of the chess game. That's happening.
A chess game. Yeah, I think
Why did I say that? Okay, I mean that's highly ambiguous.
Yeah, but you're seeing more rhetoric from like any kind of group, any kind of side, every single political association are saying like, or whatever. Every single echo chamber group thing on all the are saying like, oh, this you have to be involved. You have to, if you don't say this, then you're not. If you have to be out there, you got to be fighting back. You got to be.
You gotta post. Let's say someone comes up with, we're all posting a I don't know, like a blue image, a blue square.
Sure. Or
whatever color. I don't know why I said blue. I mean.
Sure.
Right.
Or if you're on the right, you have to be saying like you have to be aggressively saying Happy July 4th. You have to be aggressively posting flag. You have to be. Everyone is becoming like you have to do things to show that you're participating.
Yes, and why I brought up the social media posting thing is because between peers, people would be like, "Hey, but why didn't you post this?" I mean, people will think you're on the other side if you don't. So what are you waiting for?
Yeah, and a sketchy longer wave is if you're not totally vocal about a certain medicinal intervention, then
be careful out there.
I know, be careful in here. If we start speaking too much, these light bulbs will go off.
We will be teleported to some other thing.
I wish, dude.
Yes.
We need to make that effect where if someone makes such a good point, I get teleported up through here.
That used to be a pretty safe narrative. Like, beware of new experimental things that you can try. Like I don't know, like
you're going
nightclub designer drugs. That used to be like parents be like, hey, be careful, that's sketchy. That's like a coin toss. That's
totally. I feel like that's a false comparison, but I don't want to go into I don't think we should go into this wave.
Totally, I'm backing up. I'm running away from it.
Dude, there is too many minefields.
Yes.
It's a minefield.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and I like the fact that on this podcast we try to carefully walk through minefields. But I'm not going to lie. There's certain things where you get a little, you start to sweat a little bit in the palms.
You got to look over your shoulder, see what's happening.
Excuse me.
No problem, sir.
So how do we work on making sure that you're not looking over information when you're rereading a book to go back to safety? If you're rereading a piece of information, how do you or you're first reading something or first consuming information, do you think so? One of the things is working on a habit to checking dictionary as you comparing different definitions, something like that.
You could. I mean, first of all, you need to make sure that enough time has passed for the revisitation.
Oh, you're talking about revisitation protocols. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about initial protocols of how do you make sure that you don't miss anything.
Oh, you can't.
You can't.
No, you don't have the foresight. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really can't smell what you don't have the receptors to.
That's true. All right. Okay, listen, we're going in a little bit here, okay? I'm not trying to sidestep everything. I do think it's pretty nuts Okay, that you aren't that to be passive is becoming like a aggressive move politically.
Big contradiction, but yes, I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have an opinion on. You have to have a stance all the time these days. It's like
the radicals used to be the guys that did the thing, and now like not doing the thing is the radical.
Yeah. That's the.
If you wait and observe, that's like a big. Anything that I say after this is sketchy. So
yeah, dude, and this is a definition thing, right? It's like this is a definition thing. It's like what does politics mean? What does passive mean? What does involvement mean? What does it's like all of the meanings of these things, and to tie it into our conversation, it's like the meanings are becoming evolved.
Yes.
But I do think that you don't see that. Like if you go to a dictionary or you go to, I mean, I don't think that that's changing that much. I think a lot of this is like cultural, and you're seeing a lot of it on social media, and you're seeing it on echo chambers, all sides, everywhere. You're seeing people redefine things, but it's not making it to what you were saying. I really don't see a lot of it making it to these institutions that are defining things. And like, yes, you can maybe point to small little things, but it's like these things do change slowly over time. And I'm talking about something like you just said, radical, what's that even mean? Like all of these things that are changing. You look these things up and it's pretty clear, I'm pretty sure, that they're not evolving as fast as they are in the way that they're. I would say the trend isn't redefinition. It's a trend of not having to be precise in meanings while having a conversation or while writing or
I think, yes, agree, but there's a parallel trend, which is allegedly there's a parallel trend, which is...
What does that mean? Allegedly there's a parallel trend?
According to me, my opinion is that there's a parallel trend between that phenomena and then authority institutional figures validating that phenomena in a widespread manner. So the people that are engaging in that phenomena, which is called not caring enough about specificity and meaning of words, they feel like they can't be wrong because I'm backed by like all of these people think the same. There's a corporate world in medicine, in so many different
but I don't think it really matters, man. I don't think it really matters. Like, I think that there's people that are yelling at each other on social media, and maybe these things change, but people's lives aren't changing. People aren't like really radically changing how they communicate day to day. Like, I really don't see it as some massive change in terms of how people, like, I'm not talking, I do think there's a massive change on social media and in writing and in news and in the way people have like debates, but I don't, but I think that it is, I think living in the world where there's this massive like war between like definitions and like language police and the culture wars and all that stuff. Yeah, I do think that is in itself an echo chamber. Like it's a minority of two minorities of people who are caring so much about these things yelling at each other online. And like, yeah, maybe someone gets thousands of people to email a corporation and gets them to put out a tweet or something.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, oh, everything is changing so crazy, and then there's this like back and forth of this like everyone thinks that the most profound thing is happening. I really don't think that that's like, as soon as you get off social media, like that's not, nothing's really that nothing's that severe. The severity is totally totally an echo chamber.
I mean, there have been a peak in mass protests in the last year, but I mean that's of course another topic. Well, I just want to go back to the previous
60s,
point.
Though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you start comparing it to different time periods, it's not. We're okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Let me try to wrap up the previous point, because I feel like there's a discovery that I can make for myself. Okay. Okay.
Fish out.
It's okay if people are yelling at each other online, and if that goes crazy,
they love it.
More power to the people that are actually trying to...
Exactly.
So there's debate. My whole thing about debate, and there's debates about, let's say, very important things and very high risk things.
Yeah, the interpretation of what's valuable is maybe the biggest change.
But also there's consequences in taking action or choosing a side of the debate. But let's say it's just a debate. There's contradiction. That's okay. That's been happening forever, and we gotta figure it out. What does not help is this authority figure institutions or corporate big money, big marketing, big influence brands in a lot of areas: news, media, social media, medicine, financial, and these corporations have opinions, which is crazy because only individuals can have opinions, and we can have opinions of individuals, and then individuals can debate, but these corporations have two sides, and then that forces an individual to be like, well, this very important institution is saying that there's no debate.
Yeah, but these are just like financial decisions by companies who want to placate to the masses who are going to buy their products, so that they or politicians. Everyone's just trying to get their vote, whether it's vote of the dollar to purchase a product, or whether it's a vote to put somebody in a position of political power. But it sways and changes all the time. If this was like, if we're using the States as an example, let's look at post 9/11. The culture was totally more what you would consider to be right wing. Institutions were adopting messaging that were reflecting the culture's idea of war and all this stuff. It's like the culture sways, and if the culture's swaying or the loudest portions of the culture are in a certain stance, then the corporate messaging and the political messaging are going to reflect that, because they want to get a dollar vote or they want to get a political vote. And that flows. Like we will see throughout our life a sway and flow of the cultural of the loudest in culture, who are then like the corporate messaging is just going to reflect that. I don't think it's like, of course, some people are seeing these messages and going like, oh, see, it's institution, but they're just using it as further testament to their side, like culture messages. It doesn't, in the larger picture, it's like, as soon as the people flip, then the messaging from the corporate is going to flip. And the political messaging is going to flip because they're going to be like, they just stick their finger up, go, what way is the wind blowing? Right. And then they just yell the same direction. It's like, so I don't see that as any difference of how it's always been. It's just, I think we can see it more prominently because social media, you're seeing more people, you're seeing the loudest voices have platforms to continuously yell about stuff, whatever side it is, and whatever company is getting the most pushback for whatever it is, they're going to try to ease whatever the thing is so that they can keep making money.
Yeah. Or keep getting the votes. Keep having the majority.
Yeah. If people do some sort of survey that is like, oh, now people want the definition of this to mean this, they're going to be like, all right. Because I got to get into the position of power because I've had all of these people help fund this organization that chose me to be their candidate. There's so much business interest. There's so much donations that have been given. And these people want to have all of these things seen, come to light. They want to put these things into practice. They want these things to change. There's these business deals they want. And that's a reality of the situation. And so they're like, look, in order for those people to do that, in order for them to get rich, in order for them to keep donating to this political party, I'm going to have to start freaking saying whatever the people want so that they put me in power so that then all of these people who got me to where I am can do what they want to do. And so it's always, and I think it's always been like that. It's always been sticking, whether it's corporate or whether it's political, it's people sticking their finger up and going, well, what way is the wind blowing? Because people need to keep.
But I think now we are at a different game. A game that's different from before. Because
is it a different game or is it just like juiced up and like on steroids? Is it the same game but juiced up, or is it a different game?
Because I feel like the new wind is similar to like, but who are you guys? Who put you in charge? And now they're not gonna repeat. They're not gonna go along with that. Now they're like, I don't know, like if their power is at risk, they won't change the narrative. They will stick to the narrative that has been working so far.
Exactly.
That makes them more powerful.
Yeah, but as soon as it starts to not work, as soon as people say, hey, why are you in power? If more people are saying that than people who are, when the wind was blowing, then they'll go, okay, so all you people who are saying, why are you in power? What do you guys think? And then they're going to get their opinion, and then they're going to start saying the things that they want to hear. As soon as those voices outweigh the other ones in terms of voting power.
Let's say the who are you who put you in charge
the who are you guys
becomes 51%.
Exactly.
60.
Exactly.
They can't go along that narrative because that narrative encourages this extinction.
No, because the people who are saying who put you in charge, they're just saying that because they don't like they don't like what they're saying. As soon as they were saying something that they liked, then they would be like, oh, okay, that's fine.
I don't think, for example, a bureaucratic, what am I saying? Yeah, like a high-ranking politician will start throwing anarchism points, because that means that
throwing
that
anarchism. No, they're not going to throw point. They're not going to talk about like, hey, the position I'm in is illegitimate. But they're going to say, okay, you guys who think my power is illegitimate, what do you like? What do you want? And if they're like, we don't want government, then they'll be like, they'll make some stupid policy that's like, we're reducing government positions and blah, blah, blah. And they'll be like, oh, okay, do that. Then they'll stay in power.
True anarchists won't go along with that. They would never say,
who
okay,
are these
yes.
People?
But yes, I'm talking philosophically. This
is the way it's worked forever. They'll figure out a way to use rhetoric and political messaging to figure out what anything. They'll throw anything against the wall and be like, the who are you people, eventually they'll get them with something. And if they have to give them a little bit of what they want, they will. But they'll figure it out. That's what the focus groups and the like Council on Public Relations and like all of the Edward Bernays stuff, that's like they'll figure out what do you guys want and how much do I have to, and how much do I actually have to do, not say, for you guys to be happy. Like they'll start with just saying what you want to hear, and then if that's not enough, they'll try to do a little bit, and then if that's not enough, they'll try to do more that people want. But eventually people will be satiated. They'll be like, it seems like they're listening to me, and they'll ease off. And then the finger's just in the wind. That's how I feel.
Sure. Yes. I mean, not being specific is hard in this waves. I do think in the next 10, 20, 30 years, we have a big debate over how sovereign countries are, how independent really countries are from international organisms that deal with many factors. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe.
Just my opinion, obviously.
Yeah, maybe.
It's just boring.
I think the thing about social media is that I think we're going to have the conversations about everything. Well, that's not true. The conversations are very narrow, and you're told what to think.
But there's a big relation between an individual and their government, their country, like their local constitution and rules, and that country, which would be similar to the individual inside the country, in relation to the international organism and international laws. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's a similarity that countries are like individuals in the international game, and there's a big debate between those three entities: the individual, and then the country, and then the international.
There's always been I agree.
I don't know.
I'm trying to open my little stubble watch here.
We are close to
wrapping up.
Yes, we are.
There's a lot of waves here. There's a lot of minefields. There's a lot of...
Yes. Yeah, I feel like we didn't... Yeah, I mean, we didn't intend to end up here, of course.
Yeah, we got into definitions, and then I think we were talking about, there's these people trying to force speech, and then it became a minefield, which we navigated, I think.
We tried to not run away, but I mean, we should have. I feel like we should have.
No, we got to run in.
Yeah.
We got to run in.
It's good.
Yeah, there's so many... So to go back to start at the beginning and wrapping up, there's so many books that I want to reread. Yeah. But there's so many books that I still have to get to. I have a lot of books on my shelf that I just need to get to.
Right. What's better, new book or revisitation?
Yeah. But I think you have to kind of filter in some books that you felt were important, but maybe you didn't. You realized that they had lots of meaning in them, but you didn't actually get all of the meaning from it because you got the feeling, but you didn't really incorporate the whole galaxy of the info paradigm.
Right. I feel like if you revisit and you encounter new valuable things, you should continue to read, and the revisitation has been successful. But be careful with new books, because most books are not worth reading. Only a small fraction of them are.
Really?
Yes,
I don't think so. Compared to what? Most. Compared to not reading anything, or compared to other?
No, compared to like reading the best books. Yeah.
Best books. You don't know what the best book is and what someone's looking for.
Classics. If you go, I mean,
dude, maybe someone just wants to relax and they only use books for relaxation.
But I'm just talking about probability. I'm not saying like a new book or even superficial. Entertaining book is wrong or bad, not at all.
And that being said, we have our new book out. Everybody, check out our new book.
The probability that your new book is boring is high.
Okay, I don't buy that for a second, but
okay, nice.
You know, I think it's for me that comment is like music. It's like it's saturated. That's, I think, maybe
same with film, dude.
There's just so much, man. Okay,
yeah.
but
encountering a good movie that I haven't seen is hard, bro.
Okay, I will agree with you that I think that there haven't been really original and inspired movies that have come out in a long time.
They probably have. It's hard to discover them because they're rare.
I'm contradicting myself, but I think, dude, I'm contradicting myself, but I don't think there's as many good movies coming out.
Sure. No, but there are, but they're rare.
I'm going to push back on the book, and I'm going to agree with the
Same
movies.
with books. Anyway. All right.
Hey, good convo. I hope you guys enjoy it. And I liked really going back to the origination of MK Ultra and of the proliferation of LSD in testing subjects for control and the Unabomber. And
that's a good one. Yeah? What else?
Ken Kesey going into Bigfoot. We talked about Bigfoot.
We don't go into Bigfoot. That's
Loch Ness.
Too conspiratorial.
We talked about Greys. We talked about aliens, UFOs. We talked
about
the Anunnaki. We talked about lost civilizations.
Please go on.
And it was a great convo.
Great convo.
I look forward to...
We should continue to look into those pretty normal, non-controversial areas of reality.
Yep.
All right. And thanks everyone for their continuous viewership and loyalty and to making it this far into the casts.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'll see you on the next one, 42.
See you in 42.